I'm Nathan. You're about to travel to a place of humor, analysis, and discovery. Welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are back again talking about episode 83, The Battle, Part 1.
It's happening. Affirmative. Battle lines. Oh boy.
You're sure you are prepped for The Battle, Part 1,
Yes,
Andrew?
Yes, I am. For the uneducated listener, I prepped the wrong episode last week. We showed up and we started recording, and Dylan read out the title of the episode, and I said, I am so sorry. I prepared for the wrong episode. And then we couldn't record.
Good time.
It was a good time.
Yeah. So The Battle, Part 1 is written and directed by Phil Lawler. It originally aired August 19th, 1989, and it is episode 11 off of album 5, Daring Deeds, Sinister Schemes.
Yes.
Okay. Just
fact checking. Yes.
All right. Also, we have a couple people in the cast here.
Really?
Yeah. Bob Luttrell in to voice Sheriff Bill.
Oh, okay.
And Joe, the guy who works at the counter at Blackgaard's Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen Merrick as Dr. Farber.
Okay.
And Jerome and Matthew Gregory as Jeremy and Matthew.
Cool. I wonder if those were just people that they knew.
This is their only episode credit.
Yeah.
And they are not anywhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
These are neighborhood friends.
Yep. But Whit knows them by name, even though they're in one episode.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. Yeah, this is definitely this is an interesting Wit episode. We'll get into it. Like, it's good and bad. I don't know.
No, that's fair.
It's very confusing. This is one of his more human episodes, I would see.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, he doesn't seem to have the supernatural, like, foreknowledge. Something's fishy, blah, blah, blah.
That's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
Yeah, at least that he had it in, like, Novacom, where it was, like, something bad happens and was just, like, head scratch, Novacom.
Right.
They're the ones that's behind it.
Right. It's not, yeah.
With that being said, it seems like it's time to roll the promo.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Unless you had something you wanted to add.
No, I didn't.
Coming up on Adventures in Odyssey.
Lost, Whitaker! He would put in a safeguard.
The evil Dr. Regis Blackgaard takes control of Odyssey.
Spineless, get out of my way! A little present for you, Mr. Whitaker.
Will he succeed?
Lucy, get out! Lucy!
The only way to know for sure is to tune in to the next Adventure in Odyssey.
Weird musical shift right there at the end.
But overall, this episode does such good music.
Yeah, it really does. That promo though is very it's just the whole episode.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, you wouldn't necessarily know.
No, I realize.
You would only recognize that it's the whole episode in hindsight.
Right. No, that's fair.
But it doesn't it answers more questions than it asks, I would say.
It answers more than it asks more than it answers.
Sure. I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
I'm going to concede that you were right and I was wrong there.
Thank you. That's very important to me.
Yeah. So we get like a Chris intro, and then it just goes straight into Whit and Eugene visiting Blackgaard's castle. And
Yes.
it sounds like a Chuck E. Cheese on a Saturday at like 2 p.m, and it is absolutely bonkers.
That is a really, really good assessment.
I think that, I don't know if they're intentionally, like if Blackgaard's castle is intentionally throwing shade at Chuck E. Cheese, as far as like, it's just kids running wild and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like, but like, that's really like, I've only been to Chuck E. Cheese maybe like twice in my life, and that has been my experience where it's just absolute chaos.
No, that's fair. Are those Chuck E. Cheese still exist?
Yes, there's one
Wow.
close to us.
I know there was growing up, but I didn't know
Yep.
if that seems like a business that has to be gone, but
Yeah.
it is not.
Yeah, I mean,
Odds we buy one and turn it into Blackgaard's Castle.
listen, I'm going to be a therapist. I could make a decent amount of money. I could definitely start my own children's entertainment emporium. I'm into it.
Yeah.
It'd give me an excuse to buy a lot of Legos and video games, which I already don't need much of an excuse anyway.
Amen to that. So the episode actually starts because we get the little Chris intro where she's like setting the tone, and she reads some quote special and comforting Bible verses
Yeah.
going into it because it's about to get dark.
This is a dark one. There's no
There's no parental warning.
No, there's no parental warning.
Unless there was on the radio and there isn't on the album.
Yeah.
But this might also just be before Odyssey felt the need to do that.
Well, no, because wasn't there one on this Case of the Secret Room
Oh, yeah, I think there was.
or something like that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Whatever.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Very, very strange that they didn't. I mean, literally, like,
Yeah,
a kid gets blown up, basically.
Well, and yeah, it might be on the radio broadcast because we did radio broadcasts for Case of the Secret Room. But this is the album version for the Blackgaard Chronicles. At which point there may be just like, yeah, they know what they're getting into.
Yeah. They know. This
Like maybe
is
the
scary
whole
guy.
album has
He sounds
warning.
so much like Shere Khan from The Jungle Book.
Oh,
Ever since
interesting.
making that comparison last episode, I cannot get it out of my head. I was prepping for this one. I was like, wow, it's like Shere Khan's voice in Jafar's body, and that's it.
And this is
This is after The Jungle Book came out.
okay. This is after the Jungle Book.
Yeah,
Oh,
The Jungle Book came out in like the 70s.
right. No, it's pre-Tarzan. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Yep, I confused those two.
How?
They're both set in jungles.
That's fair.
With a little boy, with a boy and then a man in the other one. But, like, they are very similar
Yes,
in,
there's a lot
like,
of talking animals.
design.
Yeah.
And I was also, like, growing up.
The one has music by Phil Collins.
I know.
What a great soundtrack.
It is.
It is so much better than it has
Bizarrely good.
any right to be.
Yeah. But I also, like, growing up, all of the, like, 2D animated Disney movies,
Yeah.
I all just kind of, with the exception of ones that, like, came out while I was growing up, I kind of assumed they were all made at the same time.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
like
fair
I
enough,
couldn't
yeah.
really tell the difference in style between a Beauty and the Beast and a Robin Hood. Even though those are,
Okay,
like,
very different.
50 years apart or something.
Yeah,
40
yeah.
years apart.
I think
like,
I could tell between, like the really old stuff, like your Snow Whites, your Robin Hoods, Jungle Book, Cinderella, that sort of thing, and then like Beauty and the Beast, Mulan, Hercules.
Right. Those
like,
are all the 90s ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I think I
Right.
could separate that.
I didn't
much,
have
but-
that separation, and I think part of it is that, like, growing up, all the princesses already existed as like a package deal.
Yeah.
Where like you'd see art with all of them together, so
Yeah.
you just assume those were made at the same time.
Yeah.
And like,
But like Ariel came out like 30 years after Snow White did.
yeah, if not more.
Yeah.
And then like we had like kids like picture books based off that were adaptations of a lot of those, and they were all in like a box set that looked the same.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that stuff just it never occurred to me that they were made
So far apart.
right over like such a long period of time
Yeah.
until much later.
Yeah.
Hence my confusion of Jungle Book and Tarzan, and we are so far off track right now.
This has been Princess Corner Part 2.
It really has. You're right.
There you go.
I think I actually removed that one from the feed, which is dumb. I regret it.
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. If you want it, DM me.
Yeah. Tweet at us. Email
At
us.
Email us.
Send us a voice recording.
I'll send you the file.
Yeah. You can have it forever.
Yeah.
Anywho, back to Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah, no kidding. So
Eugene and Whit are just kind of walking around like it's super chaotic. Kids are just running rampant.
yep, it's been open for several weeks now,
Yeah,
and is
yeah.
bringing in dozens of kids.
Dozens. We're talking 48 children.
Maybe just 24.
Could be 24. What if it's baker's dozens? Would it be, what is 13? 26. There you go.
Good
Math.
job. So proud of you, Andrew.
Thank you.
So Whit and Eugene go in to investigate and are chatting it up with Dr. Regis Blackgaard.
Blackgaard. Which, in the promo, they really emphasize the Blackgaard. Yeah. So they're talking about the shop, and like Eugene makes the comment like this seems like this is a madhouse and stuff like that, and then we get this whole kind of philosophical clash of what it should like what a kid's space should be like, and Dr. Blackgaard's talking about like they have structure everywhere, they just need a place where they can be free and do whatever they want and just let kids be kids without really any structure whatsoever. And there's all kinds of games and I mean there's like it sounds like there's just a ton of like arcade games and things like that that are going on. One that's mentioned is some astrology thing, like a fortune teller.
Yep, of course there is.
And then, Focus on the Family gets to get on their soapbox real quick and talk about how terrible astrology is and how it's an occult and that kids shouldn't be aware of it or whatever.
Yep.
Like, you think it's a good idea to turn the occult into a game? Like, okay, calm down. And then even Blackgaard like makes a point of like, wait, like we both know that this was these fortunes were drawn up by some guy sitting in a warehouse somewhere,
Right.
And
Yep.
it's like,
Yep. Uh-huh.
my God, senses are tingling.
Yeah. Yeah, we also Blackgaard kind of gets on his whole thing of like he's like the whole point of this is like pure uninhibited fun, like
Yeah.
kids have too much structure.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I agree, but they still need some structure. And he's like, nah, we just let them run wild, that's fun. And then we see Matthew and Jeremy fighting about the astrology game just to hammer home the point.
Yeah, that the astrology is of the devil. And then, of course, like, Dr. Blackgaard comes in and it's like, oh, what seems to be the problem? This is after Whit and Eugene try and break them up.
Right.
Seems to not work.
Yeah, and one of them's just like, hey, we don't even, like, go back to Wit's End. It's gross. It just has, like, the Bible room and stuff.
And
like,
so,
we
yeah,
like
the
it
train
here
set in the
better.
Bible room, and it was just like, "Ugh."
Yeah, and they're like, no offense, Mr. Whitaker.
Yeah. Yeah, you jerks. And then Dr. Blackgaard gives everybody ice cream,
It's true.
which
Everyone.
dozens of kids ice cream.
Right.
That's a lot of ice cream.
I know, poor Joe.
Exactly.
He's got to serve up ice cream to dozens of kids.
Yeah.
All at once.
A whole 24 of them.
You think he's just doing, like, single scoops?
Yeah, I'm imagining this is kiddie. I don't think everybody's getting sundaes. That just seems like a colossal waste of money. Although, Blackgaard's Castle might be raking it in, depending on if these games cost money.
Yeah, that is... I never understand how the economics of any of these places work.
I'm thinking that Blackgaard's Castle costs money because they're the bad guys.
Right, but then...
And it seems a lot more like a Laserdome arcade or something like that, where there's like
It
tons
does.
of games.
I always feel then, I don't know, like, where are the kids getting all the money is
Yeah.
always a thing
Yeah,
that goes through my mind.
Their savings, of course.
Because, like, I never... Going to a place like an arcade to spend money was a, like, once a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was only when
Growing
I
up.
was pretty much going to Laserdome, and it was only for, like, other people's birthday parties, and my parents would give me, like, $10 to...
Right.
You know,
exactly. So it's
play
weird
Halo.
that, like, if Wits End is free and kids just, like, hang out there for fun after school, it's just a place to hang out and they can do stuff if they want.
Yeah.
It's bizarre that everyone's hanging out then at a place instead that costs money.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's
I
also,
just-
like, the new thing that's going on. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I guess small town is a different story too,
Yeah.
kind of, where everyone can walk. Plus, it's the 80s, so parents don't super care about knowing where their kids are at all times.
Yeah. 89. We're bordering on helicopter parenting, but we're not there yet.
No, we're not.
But they have, yeah. I think in my imagination, this is a Chuck E. Cheese Laserdome style situation where there's tons of games and kids just kind of do whatever they want and they get in fights and that happens and the whole point that Blackgaard's driving home is just like, oh, you lost your smile or like you've lost your fun mood or something like that, and then just wants everybody to be happy all the time in the most creepy way possible.
That's fair. And it's essentially just the Novacom Kids Center.
Exactly. Which, come on, Odyssey. You were gonna do that again? You didn't think we wouldn't pick up on it?
Not only that, but to do it twice in your biggest series.
Yeah.
Your
Like
two biggest arcs. Just be like, yeah.
Well, they had to. And
they
it was
have-
only for like what, an episode and a half, maybe. Like
the
how?
Novacom Kids Center is so irrelevant to that story. Not that Blackgaard's Castle ends up being that relevant either, but more so.
But the whole like Blackgaard's Castle, him being the bad guy, like Black Knight, White Knight situation, I think it plays a lot more in than the Novacom Kids Center.
That's fair.
That's more so just for the wit character development, I suppose.
Yeah, no, you're right. So also during this, we get to find out that unfortunately Lucy is still hanging around with Maxwell.
Yeah, and it's just as creepy as before.
Yep. And then they basically decide to leave, and as they're walking out, Wheat and Eugene are talking about that, and the quote is, her infatuation with Richard Maxwell is cause for concern. Which, yes, it is. Thank you for acknowledging
Great
that.
concern.
Oof.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And then we get Wit just being like, boy, it's a beautiful day.
Yep.
Hey, what do you say we walk back to Wit's End instead of taking the bus? And Eugene's like, that's awfully far for a man of your... And then Wit's like, careful. And he goes, social status.
And then Wit just lets loose his great laugh, which I
Yeah.
love. I love Hal Smith's laugh.
He seems so happy there, like the kind of like you can see, like you can hear his eyes getting wide. Like, it's just so nice out here. Like let's just go for it. Like what do you say? And like I don't know. Listening to this episode, I was thinking like I wonder what they're talking about this whole time, because it's pretty far. Like presumably it's like several miles. Like wonder what they're talking about.
Yeah, give me that spinoff.
Yeah, seriously.
I'll read a book about that, Phil Lawler.
Yeah, yes, please. Walks with Wit. A Lenten devotional guide.
And so yeah, they leave, and we hear Lucy talking to Maxwell about applesauce.
Yeah.
And yes, there are many geese in the background.
Again, they're quiet. I don't know if you can hear them, but there are several geese.
So many geese, guys.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Dozens of geese. We might be bordering on 36 geese at this point.
Folks, it is way more than 36 geese.
This really drives home, like, this scene with Lucy and Richard, like, I don't know, I just got so much more manipulation out of Richard. Like, he plays so many, like, he lays it on a lot more thick and plays a lot more of the different angles, like, oh, did you find out any more about applesauce? Do you want me to get fired? Like, stuff like that, like, get her another soda, all this kind of stuff, like... It hit home in a way that, like, in 2020, looking back, I'm like, wow, that's yay.
Yeah.
Yay. It's creepy. I mean, it was creepy back then, but
yeah,
boy, I think given what we know about society and how people in power can take advantage of people,
yeah,
it hasn't aged well.
Well, or it's aged extremely well.
Yeah.
Because it's just, like, it hammers their point home even stronger. And yeah, so his whole thing is he's trying to get Lucy to investigate applesauce for him.
Yeah.
And
Which seems like a terrible idea.
yeah, it is the weirdest of plans.
Yeah.
And Blackgaard walks over.
Like I see you enjoying another
Maxwell,
soda.
Yeah, exactly. And Maxwell ends up sending Lucy away, and he and Blackgaard talk.
Yeah.
And once again, kind of hammering home the point that, like, what is the purpose of Lucy? How do they think this is going to work? Because Maxwell then talks to Blackgaard about the fact that he got a bunch of information about their computer system from a connection he has at the phone company.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not even, like, Lucy did nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
Lucy...
except for, like, orchestrate the burning of Tom's barn.
Yeah.
Which
that was
is
useful.
Not talked about at all.
That Tom's barn just got lit on fire. Yeah.
Like, it is so bizarre. And also, like, 4 episodes aired between last one and this one. But, like, it's so different from Novacom, wherein, like, everything that happened was immediately talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is like, Tom's barn burned down. We jump forward several weeks and go to Blackgaard's castle.
Yeah.
Like, it's a different experience.
It is a very different experience. The jump is huge. And, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's something that it seemed, at least in that episode, that it was being built to something more. Right. You know, like it seemed like Tom's barn being set on fire and Blackgaard coming in, like, that seemed like that was going to be directly addressed, or at least it should have been directly addressed, whereas I suppose the whole purpose was just, like, Blackgaard's a bad guy, the end. Tom's barn's on fire, and that's just to show that Blackgaard's a bad guy.
Right, and so that he can get his vote through.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, like, isn't then even in this episode a point of conversation.
Exactly. Well, because, I mean, he's already got the building.
Right, but, like, Wit in that episode seems like he is, like, kind of connecting the dots.
Yeah.
At the end of that one to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And then this one is just kind of like, oh, like, Blackgaard's place is bad because kids are running crazy and there's astrology there.
Yeah,
and not
much.
Because, like, this man burned down my barn.
Yeah, and
or my best friend's barn, rather.
Manipulating.
Yeah.
Lucy. And then basically, you know, during Richard and Blackgaard's conversation, kind of Blackgaard says, like, oh, I don't, like, you know, Richard says, like, I can't get anything more out of her, you know, I'm gonna scare her, and he goes, like, you know, I don't care about scaring anyone, like, I only care about applesauce, and it's just very much like a cutthroat, like, I think it was, I mean, with this, you know, excluding burning down Tom's barn, like, this is very much a, wow, this is a very evil man that isn't just manipulating people, he is destroying people.
Right.
For the sake of what he wants.
Right. Like, Maxwell is a manipulator, but, like, Blackgaard's pulling the strings.
Yeah. Well, and
also Blackgaard manipulates Maxwell into manipulating.
Exactly. Like, there's, like Maxwell is a Wiesel, is, like, a very gross, bad person, but, like, Blackgaard is actually just chaotic evil, you know?
No, that's fair. And so anyways, so we touched on this a little bit, but through a contact at the phone company, Maxwell found out that Wit's computer's connected to a modem. Which, when we were talking Novacom era stuff, like, yeah, of course, but this is 89. So commercial internet, like, as we know it, didn't happen until 95.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're still in the era of the internet exists, but it's just academic stuff. And it's just, like, it's peer-to-peer. So it's computers talking to each other to share information, but it's not like you can, like, go to websites in the same way. And so...
Which is important to note, I think.
Right. And so it is a big deal that Wit has a modem.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in, you know, the early 2000s, it's like, yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Everyone's got the internet. So Maxwell also has a modem set up. and then through that can remotely access Mabel to where they hear her but cannot speak to her, but can type commands to her.
Yeah.
And they load applesauce. It runs at level 1 and
Freaks out everything at Wit's
right.
End.
And we cut to Wit's End where like Connie's like falling
Freaking-
apart.
like,
and,
oh no,
and
not
there are
again!
so many kids like running around yelling, and I'm like, I thought you were all supposed to be at Blackgaard's castle. I guess not. Odyssey's got a lot of kids.
Yeah. Dozens here, dozens there.
Dozens of kids everywhere. But then, so anyways, and then they get to the same spot where they don't know the level 2 password.
Yeah.
And so they quick get out of it so it can't be traced back to them.
Yeah.
And it's,
Then everything shuts down at Wit's End.
Right. So like we saw before,
Yeah.
everything at Wit's End is shut down. And it's at this point that Wit and Eugene finally arrive at Wit's End.
Yeah, and Wit's like strolling in, and Eugene's like lagging behind, like, and then Wit's like, "Oh, not bad for a man of my social standing," and then he kind of like helps Eugene inside to get him a drink, and he's like, and he sees it, and the sound engineering of powered down Wit's End is so good. Like, there's just a little bit of echo, like you can hear how dark it is, kind of. It's, oh my gosh, it's so good. And Connie's like freaking out. She's like, it was just like before. Like everything went crazy, and then it just all turned off. And I promise I didn't do it. Like, I only went upstairs to, get the kids out of the building. And Wit actually like believes her.
Yep.
And Connie's like, and Eugene's like, well, did you do it again? She's like, no, like, of course I didn't do it again. Like, of course I didn't run applesauce.
Yep.
And, yeah, and, oh, I mean, I don't even know, like, it's just so good.
Yeah. And so Wit and Eugene go upstairs to investigate, and it's at this point that Lucy comes in.
Yeah.
Which,
Don't they have school or something?
yeah, maybe it's a weekend, but
Yeah.
regardless, she doesn't have a mode of transportation other than her feet. Maybe she biked.
Maybe she biked.
There's
She
a
could've
chance
biked.
she biked. But she leaves Blackgaard's after Wit and Eugene and arrives, like, a decent amount after, and arrives very shortly. And then will continue to travel back and forth between those two places throughout this episode.
Yes.
So
Her quads are enormous.
So she shows up
She is
looking
a
for
jacked
Wit,
12-year-old.
and ends up talking to Connie. And her and Connie have a little chat where she's super on edge, and Connie's kind of grilling her about hanging out with Maxwell, and is really worried because of his age difference, his reputation, and the fact that he's a weasel.
Wiesel.
And Lucy's basically just like, yeah, keep your nose out of my business, and leaves.
Yeah, no, she goes with, like, Connie says, like, oh, it might not be any of my business, and then she, goes on to warn her and stuff, everything, and then Lucy replies in a way, and she's like, Connie, you might be right. It isn't any of your business, and then just mic drop, walks out.
Mic drop, walks out, walks back to Blackgaard.
Bikes back to Blackgaard's castle.
Maybe. And
It's all the soda and ice cream she's hopped up on. She's running around like the Energizer Bunny.
and she walks in and gets a soda or a ice cream. She gets
I don't know. Yeah.
something from Joe at the counter.
Joe.
Who is just Nick
Yeah.
again. Like
Yeah.
it's the same voice.
Yeah.
Even though it's a different actor, that voice gets used.
All the time.
Yeah. And then Lucy somehow like decides to. Is there any reason given to why she decides to like go into the basement?
I think she might be looking for Richard,
Yeah.
presumably.
Yeah.
And then she overhears Richard and Blackgaard talking about applesauce, talking about manipulating Lucy to get the password that they need to get into applesauce.
Yeah, and right, and Maxwell's like, why do you even need the password? Like, you can already like run Wit's End.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Richard, applesauce is so much more.
Yeah.
And Lucy says like, applesauce. Like, did she not already know that all this was about applesauce? I guess not.
I don't think that she understood, like, I think that she might have been, like, star-crossed, I guess, with Richard to
Yeah.
the point where she didn't question, like, the significance of it or Blackgaard's connection to it.
That's fair.
Um,
And yeah, so Blackgaard is like, "Hey, you got to use your power over Lucy to get this info," and she like gasps and like runs back up the stairs.
Yeah.
and they're like, "Ah, what is this?" And then Sasha shows up.
the loudest purring cat in the world. And
love
gosh, Sasha
Sasha.
is the best. Ooh, Sasha.
Right, as
It's
if you
just
didn't,
Sasha.
as if it wasn't already clear that Blackgaard is a Bond villain.
Yeah.
he now has a cat.
Yep, named Sasha. And-
Yep.
Oh my lord, it's so good. And we get such good music. And it comes back to
Right, and then Lucy has sprinted back.
to Wits
Wits
End.
End.
She is biking like a mad woman. She is trailing behind an IV pole with just, Coca-Cola shooting into her arms, which definitely would kill you. But
Yeah, and so and then we cut back, and it's oh gosh, I was like, what is this word in my notes? I shorthanded Blackgaard and Maxwell to Blackswell.
I like that.
Our new Calyx.
Yeah, Blackswell,
Blackswell.
our new hardware store. Or Blackswell Antiques. That sounds pretty good.
And so he is so they're like, okay, we're gonna drain the power from the imagination station. They're like giggling about it and whatnot. And then Blackgaard's like, and now like send a surge of power through it. And they're like, and Maxwell's like, but that can blow things up or whatever. And Blackgaard's like, yeah, I don't care, do it anyways.
Well, the point is that he wants to take down the imagination station to distract Wit so he can get the password for applesauce.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Right. That's worth saying. Thank you.
No, you're good. Because that's the problem. Like he wants to buy time, and so
Yeah.
they do that.
And
they
so
drain the power.
Wit and Eugene, when it first happened, are examining the imagination station when it went down.
Yeah.
And now, like, we're cutting back and forth rapidly
It's
between
so
these two
good.
things, building
and the
suspense
music
real
is so good. Oh my
And
gosh!
so-
Just listen to the episode, please.
And so Wit goes into the imagination station. They send the surge, and Lucy runs in to warn Wit and gets into the imagination station, and somehow Wit gets out and Lucy stays in?
Maybe Wit wasn't like. In my head, for some reason, there's kind of like the imagination station has kind of like an observation room, almost like a surgery, like a
because we see that in the Eugene episode.
Yeah.
Where like they're watching the imagination station from like the cameras.
Yeah, and so maybe Wit is in there. Lucy runs in looking for Wit, and then just the imagination station blows up. Lucy screams. It sounds like breaking glass, and you just hear Wit go, "Lucy!"
Yeah.
And it's so horrifying, and the music is so
logistics
like, swelling.
aside, it's wild
Yeah.
and brutal.
Yeah, you work in technology.
Yeah.
The absence of power and then a surge. Is that going to blow it up? Or is that just going to fry everything?
It's hard with old electronics. Blowing it up actually doesn't seem that far out of the question.
Yeah.
Nowadays we have surge protectors and stuff built into basically everything.
Yeah.
But at that point, the idea that you would overload a circuit and like cause some sort of not really explosion, but like
maybe
sparks fly,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Or even if there was like I don't know, like even if like the power going to the screen causes the glass screen to explode or something like that. Like that would make sense as far as like that, but it sounds like she got thrown.
yeah,
Because when she's in the doctor, she says she got bruises and a concussion.
right. But it also doesn't sound like the imagination station is not destroyed.
No.
So
Maybe
Yeah.
it just like rocks back and forth a lot, like it just becomes a mechanical bull and just throws her.
So then we cut to Wit and Eugene, not Connie, sitting in the waiting room at the hospital.
No, Connie's there too.
Is Connie there? Okay.
Because Connie asked Eugene how long they've been there, and Eugene's like 3 hours and 57 minutes or something like
okay.
that.
Yeah, that checks out. And so, the doctor comes out to ask, and Whit asks for an update and says she's hanging in there, bruised and whatnot.
They want to see her,
concussion.
but she's on a sedative.
Right. Yep. And her parents are just with her at this point. And Whit's just kind of like, okay, all right, we'll keep hanging around. Like, he's very, very, very compliant. Yeah. In a way that's really nice and endearing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this is actually as bad as everything that's happening. Like, this is a very good Whit episode. Like, we see such a kind side of him.
Yep.
And he seems so much more human because he's not aware of everything that's going down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though he's being a part of it. Yeah, and then as a police officer comes in and starts talking to Whit.
Yeah.
And basically says I mean, your place isn't safe. Like, we're gonna have to launch an investigation or whatever. And Whit's basically like, no, don't worry, officer. Like, I'm gonna shut down Whit's End. Like,
yeah,
that's
yep.
it. Like,
yeah, and that's well, and Eugene and Connie both react like, what? Like, you're gonna shut down Whit's End, and Whit's very level-headed, just like, yes,
it's not safe.
That's what
I need to launch an investigation to see as to why this is happening.
Yep. And
that's the episode.
That's where we go out on.
Yeah. I mean, it is a part 1. So
right, exactly. Can't wait for part 2 next week.
Me neither, man. It's such a good episode. Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good with the second part. I mean, obviously, as an individual thing, it definitely doesn't feel like it concludes much, but it's so good.
Yeah. We also we have a little bit from the Beagle Book of Odyssey trivia. Including the initial draft of this episode had Jimmy being the one hurt in the imagination station rather than Lucy, which probably would have stopped her from doing all the running back and forth. But I think it's way better if it's Lucy. So good job rewriting that.
Yeah, and she's a main character. Jimmy's as a main character in the show overall, but he's not involved really in this.
Right.
It makes a lot more sense for it to be Lucy.
And then, additionally, there were cut scenes of Lucy racing back and forth there was scenes of her on the bus going across town. But they cut them just to move the pace faster. Yeah. But especially, I guess, on that last journey where they're cutting between Whit's End and Lucy and Blackswell.
I get Blackswell.
There was also scenes of Lucy on a bus.
That sounds like a craft brewery. Blackswell Brews.
Coming soon.
Yeah. Probably not, though. Until I learn how to make a mead.
Yeah. What else, folks? I don't know. What else are you thinking?
I mean, well, do you want to look at this? Are there any discussion questions?
Yeah, we do have one discussion question. Okay. So the single discussion question for this episode, Dr. Blackgaard said that children already have too much structure in their lives and should be given more freedom. Was he right? Why or why not?
I don't know. I mean, structure, that's very confusing because there's so much evidence for non-structured play in the development of kids. I think that there are a lot of benefits, especially with older children, in what structured play can teach them as far as what real life is like and what responsibility is like. The first thing that comes to mind is did you ever have screen time as a child?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. How much screen time did you have a day?
I don't remember.
My parents always wanted to enforce a screen time limit for me, and I just would not let them. I was like, no, I mean, I'm so busy, I don't want to actually watch that much television, and when I do, I'm doing homework too. I was kind of able to work around it, but a lot of my friends had that sort of like, you know, you have a screen time limit for when you're growing up. You can watch like an hour of television a day or something like that. And that makes sense to a certain extent, but I've also seen the same parameters just breed abuse and mistrust between parents and kids. So like,
but also you see houses where there is zero structure,
yeah,
and those kids have a really hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's clearly a level of structure that's worth hitting. I think it's a poor generalization to say that children have too much structure.
No.
And should have more freedom.
Yeah.
Because it's like, maybe that's true of some children, but not all. And also I feel like some of that's changed over time.
Yeah, well, and I think the guidance, maybe not necessarily structure, but guidance. Because, like, okay, if kids have a free afternoon to do whatever they want, are they going to go outside and build a fort and do stuff like that? Or are they going to sit inside and watch TV and play video games and whatever? Like, I would say that the lack of structure outside is helpful and good, and it, you know, breeds, you know, like healthy brain development and socialization with friends and stuff like that. Whereas, you know, alternatively, we get a, you know, My Girl Hallie situation where you end up locked in with your computer. So I don't know. It's actually like a very, very difficult question that I've thought about a lot. Like, will I give my kids a screen time limit and stuff like that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's not a question I feel like I could come to a good answer on.
Yeah.
Because it's so dependent on the circumstance,
the situation, and as to what, like, like what the kid. I think it is dependent on what the kid does with said structure. Like, there are responsible children that will be more inclined to do other things. But I think guidance and I think adult presence is important.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's structured and, like, you know, you do this and then this and then this, and, you know, every day from this you do this, like, but you need to have some. I think what Blackgaard's doing is being like, oh, like, you know, the adults are always telling them what to do, and they need a place where nobody's telling them what to do, and they can just do whatever they want, and that's
right.
That's gonna open up a lot of doors for a lot of bad things to happen.
Right.
Because their brains aren't fully developed and they don't know about consequences yet.
No, that's very fair. All right. Any closing thoughts you want?
Great episode. Very excited for part 2.
Yep.
Very surprised, like we said, like how it's so disconnected from this is the battle from the Nemesis. Like,
right. The stuff that is getting built is like the more of like the inner character dynamics.
Yeah, it's character on character as opposed to event on event situation.
Correct.
Like, which was very much Novacom.
Right. Novacom is way less about characters, way more about kind of the events happening, and we're seeing the opposite here in a way that works, but is just different to talk about. And
exactly. Well, which do you prefer?
Which,
like, or like, I mean, obviously, the goal is a balance of both, but I mean, looking back, would you now knowing, like, would you rather have it be more event focused and perhaps have less of a central evil bad guy, or would you rather have it be like, no, like, these events actually matter, and there is a bad guy behind them, but it's more about the events?
I can see pluses and minuses to both.
Yeah.
I think, and it'll be interesting once I've gone through Blackgaard all in a row like this, as we keep talking about, to see like how it compares to Novacom, because I've always found Blackgaard interesting, but Novacom extremely compelling.
Exactly.
And so we'll see what happens here.
Well, and Novacom and Blackgaard are also both, like, I've had them in my head as, like, the same kind of style of arc, when really Novacom is one big arc, and Blackgaard is, like, 7 little arcs.
Right. It's a bunch of little arcs that weren't even collected into an album until 2011.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Novacom was like immediately once Battle Lines came out, there was an album out.
Yeah, they wanted to have it all together. Because, I mean, and I think it's best enjoyed that way, to be honest with you. Right. Except for you lose Snow Day, which is very important.
As we've talked about.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts. Do you have anything to promote this week, Dylan?
Yeah, I've got kind of a weird promote. Well, it's not I don't know. Okay, so there is a Instagram account called Odyssey Moments, which is like an Odyssey meme page.
Yeah.
That I enjoy perusing from time to time and whatnot. But I just found out that they have a merch store on TeePublic.
Really?
With a bunch of really well done Odyssey-inspired designs, including multiple Wadfam Chalksod designs, a Henny design.
Really?
As well as Bones of Wrath, and a couple other things. And I don't know. Yeah. I'm gonna throw the link down in the description for you guys to take a look at it.
Take a listen. Take a look.
I feel like this is the exact sort of stuff that would be up your alley.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a lot of the stuff that I would love to have made, but like just don't have the time for it realistically.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw that in the description. And, if you guys want to throw some business that way, I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Shoot, maybe I'll do that.
Oh yeah.
Gotta rep the brand.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. If anybody knows me from LBC, say hi. My name's Andrew. I'm the weird one. But I mean, in all reality, like, yeah, if Deathstreet is listening to this or anybody that I've met at school, thank you. You guys are great. And I'm really excited that I have more people I can share this cool thing with. So, and that goes for everybody that listens to the show. It's ridiculous that we have even somewhat of a following at this point.
No, I agree. But yeah, extra special shout out to those people we know in real life.
A throwback.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week covering what episode, Dylan?
No, we're Andrew, you're getting ahead of us. We've got a new 5-star review.
We have a new 5-star review.
That we've got to read out because we're contractually obligated to.
It's true, legally.
So this is from user Barbecue Poodles.
Questions?
I agree. It's a 5-star review. Great analysis. I am thoroughly amused. I am thoroughly amused. I am thoroughly a moose. I am thoroughly amused. I am excited to revisit so many great stories. As an older Odyssey fan, having been introduced in the early 90s, I love hearing a different experience. These are well thought out discussions and don't always wax poetic when the episodes don't deserve it. Bernard and Job. Looking forward to going through the Blackgaard saga. So,
thanks, Barbecue Poodles.
Yeah.
Please don't cook dogs. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm hoping these are poodles barbecuing.
Oh, I like that.
That was what I was imagining.
I just thought these were two obsessions, barbecue and poodles.
That's fair.
But yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the for leaving us a review.
Yeah, means
and
the
if
world to
anybody
us.
else feels like doing so, we will read them.
Yes, we will.
No matter
even the bad ones.
Yep. So that is all for this week. And we will be back next week with episode 84, The Battle, Part 2.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at wadfamchalkpod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Battle, Part 1, was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wadfam Chalk Pod.